Okay, shall I start now? Okay. Okay, good afternoon and namaste. I hope you all are doing fine, staying safe and healthy. Welcome to Architect Speaks 12, brought to you by the SONA Committee on Green and Sustainable Architecture. I am Anjana Srestavaite, coordinator of the respective committee and moderator for the session. First of all, I'd like to wish you all a very happy World Environment Day. And on this special day, we have come up with the topic, Green Building Design, Resilience to the Changing Environment. I'd like to inform you that we are also live in the SONA Facebook page. And I'd also like to request you that if you have any questions during these presentations, please put those questions. You can put those questions both in the Zoom question answer box and also in the SONA Facebook page. And please mention the name of the speaker to whom the question is being addressed to. So I like to start saying that today, the humankind have realized the importance of a healthy space. May it be the home we live in, the office we work at, or any space that we occupy. The current pandemic has been a global hit to the human civilization, which, if taken positively, can be considered as a loud alarm for a better tomorrow. And for this, it is very important to develop strong resilience at the present. In terms of building design, whenever we relate resilience to the changing environmental conditions, we think of green building design, which possesses the 5 elements of nature: Jal, Vayu, Agni, Prithvi, and Akas. So today's webinar focuses on how green building design is resilient to the changing environment in the present practices and what would be the best possible ways forward to stimulate its resilience further against climate change and pandemics. So without any further delay, may I introduce you to our 3 eminent speakers. Believing that knowledge should be shared not only within the boundaries, but from also outside the boundaries and from outside our local context, we have invited today an international speaker, architect Tushar Sogani from India. Similarly, we have with us architect Ujjwal Manshakye and architect Saka Shrestha. So before beginning, I'd like to introduce to our first speaker, architect Ujjwal Manshakye. Architect Ujjwal Manshakye completed his Masters of Science in Architecture from Byelorussian Polytechnical University, Minsk in 1985. He is one of the leading green practitioners of Nepal, working in his own firm, Innovative Creators, and has been involved in green building design since the past 2 decades. His popular projects are office building of Butwal Power Company at Buddhanagar, New Banesur, Dwala Resort at Farping, Tayo Eco Resort Hotel at Nagarkot, and residence of Mrs. Sushila Sakhe at Maharajganj. Apart from the use of earth-air tunnel for heating and cooling of a building, his innovative design approach are use of solar air heating panels for heating building and solar chimney for cooling of building. Presently, he is involved in Nepal Community Reconstruction Program, USAID, in capacity of a team leader. So now let's zoom in to the presentation of architect Ujjwal Manshakye. And before that, I'd like to remind you that please consider the given 15 minutes of time, and I'll be reminding you 2 minutes before the time completes. So, and after that, we'll be zooming out from your screen. So you may begin with your presentation, sir.
Namaste, and a very good afternoon to all of participants over there. And first of all, I would like to thank SONA for organizing this webinar. I think this webinar is very important in present global scenario. Okay. So it is very pleasant coincidence that today is World Environment Day, And I also would like to congratulate all of our participants. So uh, without any wasting time, I would like to enter into the main topics. Okay, green building design. Yeah. Uh, when we talk about green building design, we remember about climate responsive design, energy efficiency, renewable energy, recyclable and recycled, and so on. But we have to remember that healthy indoor environment is very much important in green building design. And now I'm going to feel that uh, this special component, healthy indoor environment, is going to work to get to achieve resilience in all this environment degradation and phenomenon of new viruses and bacteria. So uh, now indoor air quality, I would like to recall that we breathe 21,000 times a day. We breathe 21,000 times a day, and we spend 90% of time indoor. And indoor air quality is maybe 2 to 5 times polluted than outdoor air. So considering that we generate a lot of carbon dioxide inside our building, and there is VOC phenomenon, mold, bacteria, and viruses are generated inside or added from outside. Here, we have to remember about sick building syndrome in this scenario when you are talking about fresh air and fresh indoor air quality. So when we enter in some house, we feel very comfortable. In some other house, we feel discomfort such as nausea, headache, cold, dry mucus, or inflamed member eye, and nose and throat irritations, and drowsiness, fatigue, and dry skin irritation, and above all, respiratory problem like asthma. And if about 20 to 30% occupant of the building show this type of symptom, then we can call it that it's a sick building syndrome. So how it happens? It happens due to the lack of fresh air and inadequate capacity of air conditioning system, uh, leakage of foul air into return air duct, and asbestos, fiberglass, and formaldehyde from press wood, VOC, some high humidity inside building due to dampness, and wet carpet, all these things. Yeah. Now we're talking about green building design. We design green building until now, avoiding all these things, avoiding sick building syndrome. But now it's high time for us to design building so that we can cope with this new problem of pandemics. And what I feel is we architects are going to save life some extent. Of course, we are not doctors, but we can save life by properly design a house. Before, we used to save life of people, our clients, occupants, by properly designing earthquake resistant buildings. Now it's high time that we design buildings so that the minimum people will get infected, get sick. So now the change of environment and our human behavior, changing our human behavior, we are having new type of bacteria and viruses. And here we have to think that the bacteria and viruses travel through air, insect bite, water and food, and human contact. So it's some extent controllable. The human contact, water and food, we can control those things. But air and insect bite is very difficult to control. And this is where our responsibility is. This is where the responsibility of architects are. Now, we know that the HVAC engineer, they design conventional or renewable energy system based upon ASRE or ISRE with air change depending upon the function of the room. But here we have to understand that air change doesn't mean 100% fresh air supply. Now, all this pandemic is happening due to the air problems. Now, in green building design, we used to add 20% fresh air in return air, but that is too little in present day context. And if we add 100% fresh air in conventional type HVAC system, so it is going to be very, very much expensive, and it's called all air system. The all air system is very much bulky, and its initial cost and operation cost and maintenance cost is very high. So we don't use those type of machines nowadays, even though those type of machines are manufactured by some manufacturer, but we don't use because it's not so feasible until now. Now, if we keep on using those machines, it will very expensive. Now, the green is the solution where we can have fresh air by using solar air heating panel and earth air tunnels. Now, we all know that life after COVID will not be the same. There will be a lot of changes we have to go through. Similarly, we'll have to anticipate that we have to design HVAC system with some different approach. Now, let us take an example of a house. Let's talk about very important building type, hospital. And in hospital, of course, operation theater is the most important. We all know that before we used to have positive air pressure in operation theater so that foul air doesn't enter into the operation theater. And now we are thinking about having negative pressure so that fresh air will come inside, and the contamination from patient or procedure will not travel outside OT. That's the main focus. And however, in order to prevent the air from the passage outside OT meeting and during the opening of the door towards the operation theater, there we will have to provide anti-room so that the contamination will not come inside. And we'll have to provide special grill over there. And beside that, we'll have to add HEPA filter, not for coming inside the operation theater. We used to think about HEPA filter for coming inside, but now we have to think about, we are talking about HEPA filter to taking out the air from the operation theater so that the air contamination air will not spread out outside. And we'll have to exhaust out air from the building minimum at 3-meter height. And okay, also we will have to provide exhaust grill just above patient location in patient room so that when they sneeze or cough, that minimum mixing of aerosol will travel to other doctors or nurses. Here, I would like to point out that a couple of days ago in one of the hospital, the doctor and nurse get infected when they operated one of the COVID infected person. This is very much related to that incident. So here we can see that typical all-air system where we can see a lot of machines and which require a lot of operation costs, electricity. And in green building design, there is only one blower, and it requires only few fraction of energy. And in this system, we have hot air tunnel and lot of sunshine. And of course, we have got a lot of fresh air. Now, having mentioned all these things, now we feel that we architect will have provide following things. Yeah, we have to change our design approach. We'll have to provide space for more and larger ducts. We know that usually in Nepal, in Kathmandu, we don't have to provide ducts. We are not used to, because maximum we are using split type AC by using refrigerant through copper pipe. So we have to design our building with a lot of ducts and provides additional space for filters. And knowing that, we have to know that HEPA filters require more area than other filters. And we have to provide anti-room, and we'll have to consider in depth about false ceiling so that we can run properly the ducts above. Now, I would like to explain that in Kathmandu, we have really cold weather during winter, 2-3 months, and we really suffer. And but we have a lot of sunshine all day. And my thinking is, why not to use that solar energy for heating of the rooms? And similarly, out here tunnel, which is excellent for Kathmandu climate, we can use it for cooling of the building. And in these both cases, we can have 100% fresh air and making the building hyperactive. Hyperactive means the building is closed, the windows are closed all the time. And it will prevent entering of the insect. And once insects are blocked, we can control a lot of spreading of the diseases. Now I would like to show you that how a small blower, you should be seeing here at arrow, small blower can control air, supply air from the outside air heating panels. And in this project, in the office, the air is exhausted out through the solar panel, and this system even doesn't require any blower. This system works like this. The hot air is generated in the solar panel over here, and it will go out, and it will create some exhaust over here, draft, and the air inside will be taken out itself automatically. This is my another project, and this is Thai Eco Resort at Nagarkot. This is conference hall. Now, here I would like to mention you that this whole system, renewable energy system, runs with small, tiny egg blower. It's merely 800 watt, only 800 watt. And I would like to draw your attention the position of supply air and return air below. We had placed this supply air over here so that hot air will not be stagnant above where we don't need, and we don't need fresh air over there. This is how we design, and these small things really matters. And this is the section for winter, and the solar air is heated over here and is blown by the blower to the conference room. And this is summer mode. In summer mode, we have hot air generated inside the collectors, and it will go out from the chimney, and it will create draft in the conference room, and the pleasant air of Nagarkot will enter into this building through this filter. So in this case also, we are spending minimum amount of
Yes, sir.
energy and money. Okay.
A gentle reminder of the time.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to finish. Okay. So uh, this is how it works. And I would like to show you some of the example of passive architecture. In this project, I have used solar space for heating during winter, and during summer, the hot air over here will go out through this ventilation, and a pleasant breezing is created inside the room. Now, this is my project using of solar chimneys for cooling of the building, not heating, but cooling. So in this project, I have designed these solar chimneys such that during early morning when there is sunshine, the air will be heated inside these black painted chimneys and it will travel up. And here I have provided cooling space at west and east side of the building. And once the air move outside, it will create draft system inside the room. And I have provided louvers at upper and lower level of the partition walls. And the breathing of this airflow will help to cooling of the building. And here also, please be noted that you have a lot of fresh air in this building. So now here the role of the green building. Yes, contaminated air versus fresh air supply and insect bite versus hyperactive building. But the main point is we can have hyperactive building in conventional building, gray building, spending a lot of energy. And if we are going to have 100% air supply in gray building, conventional air HVAC system, it is going to be all air system and it's very expensive and it's very difficult to maintain. But in our green building design, in context of Nepal, I'm telling that in context of Nepal, we can achieve green building with fresh air supply, 100% fresh air supply, and very important, the hyperactive building, so that insect will not come inside, and we can control pandemics now and in future. And I think that we architect can contribute, we can serve nation by saving life to some extent. And I think this is the end. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, sir. Okay, that was a very wonderful presentation and you are very much on time. So now I'd like to introduce you to our main speaker for today, architect Tushar Sogani from India. Architect Sogani belongs to a very beautiful historic place of India, Jaipur, Rajasthan. He completed his graduation in architecture from Malaviya Regional Engineering College, Jaipur in the year 1999. With currently more than 50 million square feet of area under progress at numerous sites, he is a green practitioner working with his firm, Tushar Sogani Designs. He is the vice chairman of Indian Institute of Architects in Rajasthan chapter, deputy chairman of ARC Asia Committee on Green and Sustainable Architecture, chairman of JAME Rajasthan chapter, which is an ASSOCHAM green rating initiative. And he's also the Zone representative for Zone A and member representative for India in ARC Asia Committee on Green and Sustainable Architecture, highlighting the vernacular, sustainable and green rating practices in Indian architecture. So let's zoom in to the presentation of architect Sogani. And before that, I'd also like to remind you, sir, of 20 minutes time. I'll remind you once prior to 2 minutes, and then we'll zoom out from your screen after 20 minutes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Anjana. Am I audible?
Yes, yes, you are, sir.
Okay, thank you so very much. And first of all, namaste from India and a very happy World Environment Day to all of you. So when Anjana, invited me to this fantastic session, I didn't have any reason to say no. because it was actually my cup of tea, and I always love to share, about my views about green building. Now, as the topic of this entire webinar is green building design, is it resilience to the changing environment? Of course, yes. No one can say no for that. So now let us analyze what are the reasons behind it. Now, if we, uh, just try to guess benefits of a green building, it can be basically bifurcated into three parts. First is the economic benefits. The overall cost of a green building is less as compared to normal building, though there are a lot of myths that green building is always costlier. In times to come, if you design, as architect Ujjwal mentioned, that if you really use passive measures of doing your design, you will finally end up in a less cost efficient building, and green building are always completely cheaper. So we have got the economic benefits, and moreover, when the building is being constructed, operational cost of the building is comparatively very low, as he showed in his presentation. Now, second is the environmental benefits. What are the environmental benefits? Green buildings are basically inherently designed to make the best use of natural resources. A green building is always much more friendlier to the environment than a normal building. Now, what are the social benefits? Green buildings are very good for the health of the entire ecosystem that occupies it, and they also decrease the load on the local infrastructure. These are the three very basic benefits of a green building. Now, since we know that a green building helps us in, it is resilient towards the changing environment which we are facing nowadays. Lot of climate change are happening here. So how a green building is resilience? A green building is resilient because it is seen with interdisciplinary perspective on environment and development. Uh, so resilience is a dynamic property of a system that requires dynamic and adaptive approach to manage it. And resilience has got the ability to overcome challenges and continue to develop, and it's a very strong key to such concepts and to address such issues. So resilience is a word which is now basically it's above sustainability, because in times last decades, last 3, 4, 5 decades, we have seen that we have witnessed a lot of natural calamities like hurricane, typhoons, earthquakes, for that matter, earthquakes in Nepal, tsunamis, Nisagra recently, and finally COVID-19, which architect Ujjwal talked about. So actually we have realized in this lockdown period, in this COVID era, that green buildings actually were resilient to all these climate changes. After every natural calamity, we just discussed that how the buildings are going to respond to these calamities. And finally, we are not able to arrive at a common platform wherein it can respond to all the natural calamities. So a time has come when we need to mature ourselves, when we need to think with more, when we need to think in more holistic manner that how we can make our green building which are actually resilient to the changing environment. Now, friends, we comes from a common culture, India and Nepal. In fact, in India also, we always talk about 5 elements of nature. And since Hindu mythology, they are very instrumental, in creating any build form. These 5 elements are very instrumental. 5 elements are air, which we call Vayu, fire, which we call Agni, water, which we call Jal, sky, which we call Akash, and earth, which we call Bhumi. All these elements are very, very important. And if you respect all these 5 elements in your design, mark my words, your building will have a very longer span of time. It will be a resilient to any climate change in the world, whatever pandemics you are having, whatever natural calamities you are having, mark my words, it's going to act like a very good screen. So we have to respect these 5 elements of nature. Now, actually, a green is a building, which seeks the harness of all these natural elements in their design and construction. And we have to be very eco-friendly in terms of low energy, in terms of low water consumption, and all these 5 elements play a very, very important role. And a building which comprises all these 5 elements of nature actually is a true building. If we talk about India, if I talk about Nepal, if I go to countrysides and see my old vernacular architecture, my regional wisdom teaches me a lot. They all have honored, they all have respected all these 5 elements of nature. So now I am going to, just discuss on the 8 design principles of my presentation will not be very theoretical. I believe in displaying more and more slides, more and more pictorial things, which actually gives a better understanding. And as Anjana said that I'm very fortunate enough that I have got my strong legacy with me for last so many decades, for last so many years. And mark my words, my city, Jaipur, which was planned in the year 1726, actually is an example of a very good living heritage. And my entire city, all my build forms are actually very resilient to the changing environment. My buildings, which were planned in the year 1726, actually can withstand the ambient temperature of 48 degrees in today's world. So I'll just give you an example. Let us discuss that how the building responds, to the green building rather responds to this change, climate change. Now this is a building, which basically uses very low carbon inputs. This building is Alcesar Haveli, very much placed centrally in Jaipur. And the materials in this building are used as such as wood, stones, and they are all low energy input masonry, and which actually are very appropriate for the building overall buildings in responding towards the climatic change. So this is one example. Now another example is Hotel Suryagarh. I talk about this project very much. This was not designed by me. This was designed by an architect, Ravi Gupta, who is a very senior architect from Jaipur. This building has responded to the local climatic condition, and basically it has followed all the green principles, and it has actually preserved our traditions, not because of the facade, but because of the functionality. This was the only building in Rajasthan in the present era where none of the material was procured more than 50 kilometers of radius. And all the laborers, which were working on this building and has given this build form, actually they were only from a radius of 100 kilometers. It's a fantastic piece of architecture. Now, another, this building is from Bikaner. It is called Rampuria Haveli. Now, buildings should be designed, we all know, for low external inputs. And the structure should be designed to be highly energy efficient and include the uses of such insulated building envelopes. So this is a very good example of building which actually consumes very low energy in the hot and dry climate of Rajasthan, and this building exists in Bikaner. Now, I'll come to more towards the northern part of India. This is, must have heard about this building. This is Indira Paryavaran Bhavan. And this Indira Paryavaran Bhavan is the first zero carbon building in India. And this building followed totally a passive design with climate responsive build form. The orientation was fantastic, and the layout and the envelope enhances actually the natural ventilation, daylighting, and solar shading. In the last presentation by the speaker, we came to know that what role natural ventilation play when he was explaining a hospital, in the present scenario of COVID, what is the essence of natural ventilation? Everyone has realized. Whenever we are masked for a longer period of time, we started feeling suffocated. So same thing happened when we are living in a space which actually lacks into natural ventilation. The building should be well lit by natural lights, natural ventilation, and as you mentioned, that we have to use certain other sources of energy, like solar energy. So this building is a good example of passive measures of creating this through a green building. Now, another interesting building is Suzlon. This is in Pune. Suzlon it's one earth, they call it. And you won't believe that 90% of the spaces in this particular building, enjoys daylighting. And what are the result? The result is that the total energy consumption reduces by more than 25% in this building. So, we need to actually holistically follow all of us know the 12 and 13 principles of sustainability. But if we actually incorporate these principles in our design right from a drawing board stage, mark my words, we'll be able to achieve a very holistic design in terms of a green building, and all my spaces will pay a lot of respect to the nature, the 5 elements of nature, and finally my total consumption on the building will lower down by by a huge amount, which is the need of the time. We always used to talk about usage of local material before this COVID time. There was a reason behind it, but by default, see what nature has given us. Nature has taught that now you are entangled in certain logistic problems. You cannot move from one country to another. You cannot move from one state to another. So by default, I am trying to searching those materials which are locally available. So, this pandemic, I always say, was actually a blessing in disguise for us. Whatever things we used to, talk theoretically has actually, this pandemic has taught us practically that we need to follow that, and we were following in the lockdown period. Now, I'll take you to another building, which is again a building near to Jaipur. It's called Samud Haveli, and it has got a future flexibility, And in this building, we have designed, the architect has designed the spaces, and there's a multiple overlapping of the program. So there was a good eclecticism of the heritage and the modern, because since it was a hotel, if you see the rooms, they were all equipped with 5-star luxurious, extravagant amenities. At the same time, this building was designed in such a fashion that actually it responded to the local climatic condition. And you can see the beautiful jalis, beautiful jharokas. There was a logic behind it. Not that a jali or a jharoka looks good, but in a climate like Jaipur, hot and dry climate, where if I give jali, there is a good filtration of the air. Whenever I give a slitter windows, my transformation of the air from a high ambient temperature, when it transferred to a slit windows, the pressure changes, and finally you get a cooler breeze. So there was a logic, behind everything. My ancestors were very smart. They were very witty people, though they were not educated by a degree of architecture. The kind of knowledge which they used to have to respect nature, to try to incorporate the sustainability principle, no one can ever forget that. Now let us come to certain modern buildings. This is one modern building which is called Olympia Tech Park in Chennai, and that operates day and night, this building. And it's got a high flexible interior space which always ensures sustainability, it has shown over the times also. Everything was planned properly, but in this building, certain active measures were used. Like you can see the glass facade. They have to use certain U values of this certain U value with certain classes. So it was done both actively and passively. They have followed both the measures. Now, I really wanted to talk about this building. I think most of you must have seen this, witnessed this building, especially I remember Anjana has gone to see this building when she was in Jaipur. This is the Amir Fort, This was the then palace of the king in the year 1726. Look at the way he has played with the water body. Look at the way he has played with the natural landscaping. Now, what is natural landscaping? Natural landscaping is not a plant landscaping. It allows the natural plants to grow on the particular topography of that particular area. And finally, the benefits we get out of it from the natural vegetation, natural landscape is awesome. You don't need a drip irrigation for water. By default, your rain, your Mother Earth gives all the things which a building wants. and the material being used in this building was, fantastic. The way in which they have thought, they have not used any cement, though cement was not available that time, but the selection of the material like the surki plaster, it was a very good insulation material, which actually keep the buildings very cool even at the ambient of 40-45 degree temperature. And usage of jalis, charokas, slit windows, courtyard planning. Every space in this building, has a courtyard, because you all know that hot air rises up, and then finally it creates a very cooling impact on the overall building in the time of ambient temperature. And every spaces, was being very properly planned as far as the aesthetics are concerned. So first he thought all the design language in such a way that it was responding functionally, and then by default, they have started accumulating a lot of aesthetic values. This is how our ancestors, used to plan the building. I think same things must have been happening in Nepal also. The buildings which are quite old, the then vastukars, the then shilpkars, which we used to call, used to carry a very holistic approach. So I think regional wisdom needs to be carried forward with us. It's very important, because we need to learn a lot of good things from our ancestors. Now this is another building, beautiful building called Natwalji Ki Haveli, and this was basically this designing was done with the local material in the product, and it thrust on localizing the local materials and the production, which actually decreased the cost of energy, and especially of the transportation related cost of the non-local materials, which is now need of the hour. As I said earlier, that in pandemics, after pandemics, we talk, yes, try to use only those materials which are within my domain, which does not add me to huge logistic cost. They were so witty, they were so smart enough to think all these things before, to 2 and 3 decades before. Now, if I talk about the Havelis of Rajasthan, all the Havelis of Rajasthan are being planned on a similar concept, and everyone is having a very holistic approach towards the sustainability designs. The courtyard is basically a cohesive space, then the slitter windows, zalis, sarokas, the modern materials which they used to, the older material which they used to have, and everything was planned holistically. So Havelis of Rajasthan always have comparatively many times low energy consumption as far as operations are concerned.
Sorry, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but this is a gentle reminder of 2 minutes of time.
No worries. I'm already done, Anjana. So now let us understand at a very broader level, at a very broader spectrum, what a green building can reduce. A green building can reduce your energy by 24 to 50%. It can reduce your CO2 emission from 33 to 39%. It can reduce your water by 40%, and it can reduce your solid waste by 70%. So if we have a green building, and if you follow the principle, all the 5 principles, we harmonize that in our design, actually it makes my building very resilient against all the odd conditions of nature. So nature always teaches us, something at some period of time, that you human beings, mankind, please be aware, don't confiscate my space, don't take my space. That's why we have seen a lot of things happening in this lockdown period, that nature has given an alarming call to us. We should really now judiciously follow it, and I think it's a high time that we should pay respect to nature, and this, we being an architect, can do it very easily. We can follow all the design principles, right at the drawing board stage, and you can give it a good example to the entire world. So I think last but not the least, let us all of us go green, not in terms of getting a building rated through some rating agency, but go green by a very holistic approach to be followed in our designs. And I think this platform cannot be, more auspicious than this platform, that we are talking all these things on World Environmental Day. So I think we need to think about 4 R's. We always see reuse, recycle, and but now it's a high time that we should actually rethink the entire thing. Thank you so very much. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you so much, Tushar sir. As always, your presentation was so wonderful and so energetic. So that was very nice to hear. And with that, now let me introduce you to our third speaker, architect Sakar Shrestha. With a master's in architecture from Vladimir State University, Russia, architect Sakar Shrestha is the principal architect of his firm, Reverie Designs. A passionate writer and a professional artist, he has done 3 solo exhibitions, painting exhibitions. He is the chairperson of Reverie Art and Entertainment and executive board of directors of Blue Coffee Private Limited. In 2014, he was invited to the International Forum on Conservation and Heritage by IAP Karachi chapter as an international speaker on his research, Mallas and the Mayans, Civilizations of a Greater Coincidence. He has been actively involved in SONA as an executive committee member and as the first coordinator for SONA Committee on Green and Sustainable Architecture from 2012 to 2014. Also as a committee member for Post-Earthquake Reconstruction Committee in 2015 and SONA chairperson on Committee on Outreach and Communications from 2016 to 2018. And currently, he is the vice chair for the SONA Committee on Green and Sustainable Architecture. He's also involved in academics, supervising theses and design studios in different colleges. So, sir, you have 15 minutes time for a presentation. You may begin with it. Thank you.
Share the screen, right? Ji? Anjana ji?
Hazur.
No?
Yes, sir. Yes, yes.
Thank you. Am I on the screen also? I cannot see my screen here.
So we can see your slides.
Okay. Hello, everyone. We all hope everyone is doing well at this time. The green building design have always been only with the aspects of like passive energy, energy calculations, or materials, or local context, or cultural sustainability, which are already defined. Along with this context, I have always been attached with my today's topic, which is psychological sustainability. Building, can it cope with the user's psychology? Actually, in any circumstances, psychology plays a vital role. So how can we achieve this? I will not go into great detail of as the subject is very vast. So I'll just consider a few things besides the energy and all this. The first thing that here is like marked 4 points here, which I'll be talking about a little bit. History. Civilization, actually, many of us already know now after this pandemic. I also came to know about this pandemic, actually. The history of isolation and self-isolation that never civilization used to do. See on the screen, I think. If any kind of disease like they used to have 2 weeks of isolation. British is like in Nepali, the Jara month and all those, and cholera 4 weeks. And when somebody comes from abroad after foreign country, 2 weeks, and unknown viruses, they used to have space for like 6 weeks. They have to have isolation period. How they used to that these areas have these areas are these areas are actually infected. So they used to put a long stake with balls with crimson color. Now, as it was there, I think it's about lack of information and sharing and continuing the practice among the generation. We have come to this generation only to realize that okay, now COVID that do this social distancing, self-isolation, quarantine, all this, but it had been in our history. So, focus is on space. Space plays a very vital role. After this lockdown started, I've been watching even my kids are growing. They are dealing with, you know, places, house, and all this. While we are designing, we somehow tend to forget how the space plays a vital role. You know, space plays a vital role in keeping us alive. We have become so obsessed with only giving a blank paper of plans and sections. You know, we have forgotten how to give our clients, people who uses the space, there are like the empty space that we give them is more than a space. There has to be, we can create a space within a space. You know, how these spaces play the positive space effect. For example, if you see in this photo that I have put here, my kids, they, somehow after doing all this, so many activities, online classes and all this, board, actually this is the fort. See, this is the family room here, between all these sofas and drawers. Those.
Excuse me, sir. I'm sorry to interrupt, but there is some problem with the voice. It's cracking.
Now, can you hear me?
We can hear you, but the voice is breaking.
Internet problem a little bit. Okay. Anyway, I'll keep continuing. Spaces have activity zones, flexibility of space. How they convert space into something that gives them more time to spend in a free way, right? Way, and how their activities. Next slide is.
Excuse me, sir. You can
Yes,
turn off your video. Maybe that would be a good help.
turn off the video.
Yeah, turn off your video.
You hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okay. While we do design, space, I think that has to have a value of giving yourself a new energy boost. It pleases you, and the space has to be easily convertible to anything. Staircase. Just look at this picture, and lights are coming inside, and the ventilation, and the freedom that to come and sit and do the
Excuse me, Sakadai.
well. Yes.
The voice is still cracking. I mean, do we have a microphone or headphone that we can talk to?
I have the microphone.
Voice only break while I listen.
Okay. Okay. Space. While we are planning, even a wall inside the house, you can convert it to beautiful spaces. right? For example, look at this, the photo on the left. There's a story on this little wall, right? Wall, and how the airflow is balanced, light is balanced, and how the punctured void spaces can give them a moments, create a story within a wall. There's a balcony we also uh, actually because of this land prices and all these people have to put the balconies and take its benefits out of it. For example, now during the pandemic, if you, I think everyone must have seen what happened in Spain. They were using balconies to interconnect with each other, have fun, and all these things. So, yes, use so many, create another space first, another space, greenery and all this. I'll just go quickly through this. See, look at this picture. I like.
Excuse me, sir. सर
सुनिरहेको छ अब
त्यो हजुरको फोन छ साइडमा ल्यापटपको नजिकै
अब आयो सुन्यो
आवाज क्लियर छ तर तपाईको बीचमा डिस्टर्ब भइरहेछ फोनहरु केही नजिक छ
हटाइदिए मैले
त्यो हटाइदियो भने क्लियर हुन्छ होला भिडियोको प्रब्लम हैन भिडियो चाहिँ खोले हुन्छ हजुरको
हुन्छ
भिडियो खोल्नु भयो हुन्छ
ल एक नै स्क्रिन एकछिन ल के छ अहिले
अहिले पनि ब्रेक छ अलिअलि हजुर ल्यापटपमा हो
ल्यापटपमै हो
यो इयरफोन अनप्लग गरेर ल्यापटपबाट बोल्न मिल्छ होला नि
त्यही नै गरेछु
ए त्यही तपाईको माइकमा प्रब्लम जस्तो छ है
अलिकति माइकमा प्रब्लम भयो अब सुनिरहेछ
क्लियर त छ बीचमा अलिअलि ब्रेक भइरहेछ अहिले
म कन्टिन्यु गर्छु टाइम छैन फेरि है
हस् हस्
this is a very wonderful picture that my mom is farming like this. She's taking actually any opportunity with any space, creating a space for these vegetables to grow on a thrown utensil also. I will not go through this, but other point, how landscape helps us to put the nature, and its purpose, its function, how it has to be playful, create a story, art. These all things are very related to, keep us fresh. And it doesn't matter if your land or site has a contour or anything, even a flat land can have stories like this. For example, if you see in this photo, see in this photo, this is a story. This is a small pond. And this is actually made for the birds to come and have a drink, So this is a daylight and this is a nightlife. So in every time of the day, it changes our moods. It keeps us, gives us the different feelings and all these things. And the point that is, we don't have the opportunity, to have our own greenery. It's okay to view other neighbors' garden too. Our windows openings to them. I'd like to share this a little this project here. This is a community learning center for children post-earthquake 2015 in Grimuri. If you use reusable material that we used after the thing was, it's a very low cost. And we have to, here's the concept. The main concept was how to keep psychology up, to love flowers, and the flowers has their fragrance, its beauty, the softness of nature, and this flower, and with this, you can see this up to here, right, up to this part, and then we started thinking like, what can be regarding this low-cost structures. We started using bamboos and all this. This is what we came up with. The flowers, right? This is a stage performance here. So we are performance can just rotate this and have a view on the space. And this is a
Excuse me, sir.
thing, sir.
You have 2 minutes more time.
The classroom and this, and the main psychology that the children have is like, to talk about their school and have pride of it. So if you see this, these are the bamboo roofs. I'll just quickly. Another that is like how we can make a stress-free threat, panic attacks. How we can cope up with. I'll just go through like this. This is a school. Uh, remember this? I'll just a cultural. So, thing that I wanted to say is about the movement and roots, how they affect us. Not only, for example, not only pandemic, right? In Nepal, like 85% of hospitals, all these, if you can read there, have emergency plans for fire hazard. I mean, earthquake and fire. You see, this gives us a very big mental stress, right? And one of the hospitals I've seen is like have their route laboratory in between the emergency and the OT. If you take like seriously ill patient through lab, there's a much higher chance of getting infected. So you have to be considering on that also. This is a very common practice that we come with the ventilation. I not only consider vent in, vent out regarding only the staircase well and taking the air flow above the staircase well. We have to be very considerate regarding the cross ventilation. So take a side, if you follow the arrows, simple like this. Openings has to be able to air out the inside. And circulate the air through, then it gives you the fresh air and it keeps your building fresh all the time with the fresh air. Uh, so I would also like to mention on this one, when we design building, we have to be considering this very much. To solve this, we cannot just rely on four sides, the south or east, or four sides of the site. We have to be considering all the 10 sides, ground and the sky, right? Six syndrome building, if we don't consider it, there is the pandemic, that comes within years or something like that. But if your house is not properly ventilated, heated, lighted, you can have a long-term effect on your health. Your health will rise, your lifelong, your maintenance cost will be rising up, right? Unseen bacteria and all these things that affects our thing, brain, eyes, everything. So, and regarding the technology, HVAC, high tech, I think not everyone can afford it. So I think it's basic for us to follow the passive energy, If you look at this chart, this is the, if you see the color, this is the habit we need to follow. I'll end up with this one.
Already 15 minutes, so I'd like to request you to conclude, please.
Yeah, I'm just concluding it. I just concluded it. I think I lost so much of time, so I had to do it so quickly. And thank you, Anjana. Anjana ji? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Anjana ji?
Okay.
Wait.
I think we should conclude.
Your voice is breaking up too. the sound is, I think, it's not only me, but I think even your voice is breaking up.
Hello, Sakar, can you hear me?
Abhishek, I can hear you, but I cannot hear Anjana and others.
All right. Anjana, are you there?
Yes, I am.
All right. So start with the question and answer session.
Yeah. Okay. So now we are going to start with the question answer session. So we have some questions over here. Okay, first question is for architect Ujjwal Manshake. And the question is, what measures are possible to maintain indoor air quality in the residence for lower income group? Ujjwal sir, was that clear for you?
Can you please repeat it again?
What measures are possible to maintain indoor air quality in the residence for lower income group?
I think for lower income group, the
Lower income group.
yeah, lower
Okay.
income group, only way is to have fresh air, and that we can achieve by proper cross ventilation, and that doesn't cost anything. Yeah, and we can provide all those filters and mechanism. So that's the only way, I think.
Okay. Okay, thank you, sir. So the next question is how the participant hasn't mentioned the name of the speaker, so any one of you can answer this question. How do structural engineers respond to green building design, especially when structural system is not RCC? What is the perception of clients on green building design? So any one of you can answer this.
Structural engineer.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I would like to answer this question. Basically, when the introduction of RCC came into picture, when we were using previously our very conventional method of doing roofing, we were actually quite sustainable at that time. But with the urbanization growing more, so we had to come to this RCC stuff. But using RCC stuff doesn't mean that we are not getting ourselves green. For that matter, the introduction of the rating agencies and the rating tools, which basically keeps a check on you, keeps a control on you, that how to use. Even I think there's some, I'm not very technically sound on that. If there's some OPC or PPC grade, if you use that, you get at least a green point in that. So structural engineers do not have much of contribution basically to the to fulfill the guidelines of the green building, except for the usage of this cement types.
Okay, thank you. So another question is for architect Saakash Shrestha. Do you think planning and designing will change after the pandemic outbreak?
Look, actually, that is what I was. If you look at my, can I share the slide? Look, if you look at these plans, for example, this is what I'm talking about. It's just it's just that we have been forgetting it. But I'm saying this, for example, if you look at it, it's not only for the airflow, it has to be also for the airflow, right? And if you look at this, space, this is what I'm trying to say, space, you define it, the planning. So it has to, we have to clients not only for this pandemic, it's for the earthquake, fire hazard, if we regularly to give them the drawings, what can come up. So if this kind of hazards comes up, then please follow this. drawing, you know. We have to make that practice. Otherwise, people will just, you know, haphazardly, they will just run around. There has to be given, you know, the flexibility of space, routes, defined spaces, all this. And then if you practice that, then I think it doesn't have to change. That is the only change that we have to make. Practice.
Okay, thank you. So next question is to Ujjwal sir.
Yeah.
The question is, in your projects, you have so much of interventions by a mechanical or energy engineer. Could you please explain how would you work in collaboration? How do you resolve in case of idea classes? Also, how does an EAT works just below the parking lot in the Butwal Power Company building? Won't the heat generated by the vehicles turn around the expectations?
Okay, it's a very interesting question. I take every project as a teamwork, and teamwork with HVAC engineer, sanitary engineer, electric engineer. And we, from the very commencement of the project, we do teamwork. And regarding another point you asked is the issue regarding alternately below the parking lot. Actually, it was there in design phase. The EAT was below parking lot. Now, when actually constructed, there is no underground parking. So it's just about 5 meters below the surface. Anyhow, even though it's below the parking lot, it won't matter because the intake of the EAT will be somewhere outside, and we provide air filter for intake of the air. So air will travel from air intake through air filter, then go down where there is no contact with the structure over there, maybe garage or maybe some store, it doesn't matter. So it will travel to then supply and distribution.
Okay, thank you so much. So next question is to architect Tushar Sogani. The question is, can you please elaborate a little on the passive design ideas for the Havelis that you have talked about?
Well, I think this is the most appropriate question which I always like to answer, you know, because I have witnessed this in my entire era of upbringing. You know, I've stayed in Havelis. Very good question. Actually, you know, when these Havelis were planned, they don't have any active measures of doing the things, you know. They actually were planned on the basis of totally passive measures. I'll jot down few points. What were the passive measures? Indoor air quality. In fact, all my Havelis were planned as per Vastu. Every space was given to a particular area because of the wind flow at that time. The toilets were placed in northwest corner because of all the foul smell goes bed. So this was one passive measure of doing things. I talked about a proper indoor natural ventilation. There were slitter windows, you know, to support that. But whenever there's a pressure change, you get a good, nice natural ventilation. Plus, you get a better quality of air also. My Havelis very smartly played with water. They used to always store the rainwater in the tankas or in the reservoirs, you know, and later they used to use it. It was a passive measure of doing the thing. Always in all the Havelis, you know, entire Haveli was planned on the basis of courtyard system. There were courtyards in the center because of social cohesiveness and because of the climatic reasons also. It was passive measures. And moreover, the usage of materials, they were all passive measures of doing it. They used to have thicker walls, they used to have sulky plaster. So none of the Havelis in the city, walled city of Jaipur, since it was constructed in the way 1726, they were actually, you know, following all the passive measures of doing their designs, and which is still lasting long. It's still having its impact, a positive impact on the people who are living in those amenities.
Okay, thank you. Okay, another question also, the participant hasn't mentioned the speaker's name, so anyone of you can answer this. The question is, it would be fantastic if we can build sustainable green buildings, but the solutions are too expensive for big plots. How can we design in compact settlements and in the smaller plots, as most of the plots in Kathmandu are small of 3 to 4 annas?
Yes.
So anyone of you would like to answer this?
Yeah, I would like to answer it. Okay, it's no problem to design green building for small plots, and we know that it doesn't matter the size of the building. Yeah, it is not compulsory that building should be bigger or big enough to be green building. So we can achieve green building design through so many options. And so far, we are not going to apply for rating system. Then we can choose whatever in the budget and what is appropriate for that site. And it's not a problem. And in Kathmandu climate, as per my experience, we can use solar air heating panel. If the size of the land is small and there is a lot of intervention from adjacent building, then we can have solar air heating panel at top, at roof, and we can even have a solar panel at the wall, and to make building comfortable. And for making building green, it's not only renewable energy, it's energy efficiency. We can make the building energy efficient by so many ways. And in Kathmandu, our traditional use of green brick, we call kachiapa, kanso brick, is also very much excellent for achieving comfortable temperature inside. And there are so many things that we can do in small building also.
Dhanaji, I would like to add on something. It's not about the size of the building, that is, size of the site or anything. It's about the mindset also. As the land price of Kathmandu is so high, people tend to forget that they have to live green. They have to take care of their health, just like as I mentioned in the green buildings, 600 building. The long-term effect they ignore, just to get the enough space for more than required people to live in there. I'll give you one example how the mindset is. I had designed one building in 5 annas, and on southwest corner there was a tree of blackberries, right? And then now look at the mindset. I had designed this kitchen and dining room and living room all connected to the tree, right? And just because I didn't, you know how the trend is in Kathmandu. I don't know how it's in India, Tushar sir. People don't pay you, the payment. And how long can you tolerate that the client doesn't pay you, right? So one fine day, you lose your patience and you stop going to the site. And what the client did was that as I stopped going for the supervision, just because of that anger, he cut that tree. See the mindset, right? And even in 3 ana, 2 ana, if you follow proper ventilation, if you play with the curtain void where you can get the airflow, light, and the view, as I mentioned, you can even if you don't have a space for your garden, you have staircases to fill it in a roof, even you can even use your neighbor's garden, you can sneak in the morning, in the evening, so that you can be fresh. Not only as I said, that's why I said, spaces can play a big vital role in making you live green, by boosting up your psychological sustainability, resiliency.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Next question is to architect Sogani. The question is, you showed us examples of commercial buildings, but can you tell us some influential factors that can encourage people to go for sustainable residences? Can you link it with some cases from India?
Okay. Am I audible?
That
Am I audible?
Yes, you are, yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's a very valid question, the most influential factors, which basically govern a sustainable housing, which a common man, if he goes to any property, why he want to buy that property, he want to rent out that property, he will have first two, three things in his mind. First is he will definitely inquire about the water conditions. So that means water is a very important factor. He will definitely see whether he's having a daylight in his house or not. He will definitely see whether there is a natural ventilation or not. So these are two, three factors are very important, which even a common man understands. And if I talk in terms of a already occupied building, he will definitely, if you need to buy a new air conditioner, he will definitely say whether this air conditioner is a star rated or not. Is it 3-star or 4-star or 5-star? That means it comes into his mind. And we architects basically only talk about these things. So I think these 3, 4, 5 factors, if you well incorporate in your design, you will get a sustainable residence. So common man is aware of that, but in a very crude, in a very generalized language. And we being professionals, we being architects and engineers, we know that how to design it, how to implement these factors into our design. So this is a very important factor which everyone should take into consideration. And as far as India is concerned, you won't believe I am basically working a lot for developers. People have now started asking that the house or the flat which I'm buying, is it a green building? Is it having any accreditation? It's a pre-certified building or not? People have started asking. That means awareness is going on. There are a lot of factors which cover the thing, and we, all of us, designers and architects, need to open our minds more and do more holistic designs.
I think in India, there are a lot of residential buildings rated LEED or GREA.
LEED, GREA, IGBC, GEM, we have Edge, almost 5-6 options of doing. So now I have realized in last 5-6 years, even the developers, without hardly matters whether they are being benefited commercially or through a marketing strategy, but they want that green building principle should follow in your design. And mark my words, even if I talk about Nepal, I talk about India, I talk about Sri Lanka, any countries, any building bylaws, any environmental guidelines, which we call MOF guidelines, if we follow that religiously, our developers, our builders follow that religiously, most of their building are actually green without getting a rating system. But the problem is of compliance, because wherever you do a Kathmandu Development Authority frame a building bylaws, if you follow that holistically, mark my words, your building will be at least silver or gold. But you have to follow that. Because in your building, in your bylaws, you must be talking about solar panels, you must be talking about, low energy consumption. Everywhere, wherever new bylaws have been formulated, everywhere it is there. But it's a matter of compliance. Anjana, you need to unmute your mic.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it's already unmuted. Okay, so next question for you, sir, Tushar sir. Question is, how do you see the feasibility of using the local indigenous building materials at the present stage? scenario, which is dominated by new advanced technologies. Also, there are challenges of availability of such resource and labor force.
See, I think a very valid question, and it's need of the hour basically. If I am heading towards urbanization, I actually, frankly speaking, being an architect working basically for developers, cannot answer this question in a very positive manner you are asking for. I cannot, that yes, we can do that. I cannot always think of a heritage building. Whenever there is a urbanization, you have to deviate from such things which you are mentioning, But at the same time, get yourself urbanized. Recently, like our PM have said that be vocal for local. Actually, it is need of the hour that you have to globalize yourself, but you have to take all the essence. You have to exploit the entire thing, may it be terms of labor, may it be terms of materials, actually locally. If I'm every state, every province, every country is rich in a particular things. If in Nepal, I'm constructing a building in Nepal and you are having some flooring metal already available in Nepal, then in that case, if it is responding better to the climatic condition of Nepal, just an example, not to go to Italy and get Italian marble and feel pride in that. You should try and avoid that. This is one about flooring. Same thing is for other materials. If a region which is very rich in bamboo, you should try being an architect, being a designer, to promote more and more bamboo structures. So I think role of architect is very, very important. If you want to grow urban, you want to grow vertically, then also we have to pay tributes to, I think your topics today was very, very, very relevant. 5 elements of nature. Actually, this is the need of the hour. You need to, if you respect them, you will be doing justice to your building. I think most of the problems which we are facing, by default will solve it. So as far as local labors is concerned, again, pandemic, as I told in my presentation also, pandemic has taught us that also, that you have to be local. You have to know your geo limits. You have to know your domain. Try to, flourish your business, your construction within that domain. So this is not my PM or your PM or anyone, any political leaders have taught me. This is being taught by my nature, by doing lockdown for 2 months, by bringing this COVID virus. It was not brought by China, it was brought by Almighty to the human mankind. Please now, salam from my side. Be aware. So I think this is the need of the hour. Thank you.
So we are taking one more question now, only one question now. And that's again for you. Okay, no, the participant hasn't mentioned the name of the speaker. So any one of you can answer. The question is, if you are going to build bigger project, let's say a stadium in Himalaya area, then how are we going to use this green building concept in such areas? So anyone of you can answer the question.
See, I think
Yeah, sure.
Another important thing is, since Anjana is always there with us in a lot of our international conferences and all, we see, we listen, we learn from each other, we should actually, redefine the language of green building. There's a very wrong misconception amongst most of us that a green building is with certain, parameters, certain principles, which is a costly affair and we need to follow that. It's not that. What architect Ujjwal and what architect Shrestha, mentioned in their presentation, actually they are the green buildings, all of them, whatever. So green building is not with the induced thought process, it comes by default. It comes by heart. So any building, if you design it holistically, it comes. Now, as far as his question that making a stadium is concerned, definitely, if I will be carried away by 2-3 principles. That if I'm making in in the valleys of Himalaya stadium, I need to cut hills. Simple. I have to cut hills. My very first objection will come from my environmentalist. Definitely, I cannot do that. So the very important factor for a particular built form to be thought upon is it has to be appropriately placed. What is the fun? You have to select those sites where you have a plain terrain. Again, your selection of site is very important. I can even make a stadium, by cutting the hillocks, a hill block, but I have to be very holistically. So any built form which has to be, designed, or it has to be placed anywhere, it has to be holistically thought as far as its location is concerned. And after getting an appropriate location, whatever we are doing, we can definitely implement the principles of green building in that. So it's on a very wide spectrum. We cannot just jot it down within 2-3 points and finally say yes, our building is green. It's a very broad word. So green buildings is, I think, resilience, which you are talked about. I would really like to congratulate Anjana for that. That today, you have word the use resilience. I was really thriving for it. Always you talk about sustainability, green building, but actually in a country like Nepal, where you have a lot of earthquake-prone areas and this thing, resilience is the right word. In a country like Japan, where everyone find earthquakes come, tsunamis come, resilience is the word. Resilience, actually, green buildings and sustainability is a small portion. Resilience is at a very bigger spectrum, and I think it was needed at this COVID times. Resilience was the word which need to be discussed with more depth. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. So okay. We are done with the questions now. So I'm very glad to see one comment from Professor Dr. Sudarshan Raj Tiwari in the Facebook page. Tiwari sir has mentioned, this is for Tushar sir, it's not a question, but it's like a compliment. Full consideration of Pancha Tattva, both as element and environment, will make a truly green and ecological responsive building. Well said, Tusarji. Thank you so much, sir, for
Just I would like
your...
to conclude by just last one sentence, which Architect Shrestha also answered that question, that what are the new trends post-COVID, I have done a kind of a research at my level. I may be wrong or right, I don't know, but this is my experience. Three major trends, First is going to be the minimalistic design. Always there will be minimalism in the design. Second is going to be biophilic design. Design will be more oriented towards the nature. And third and last, and but not the least, will be regional approach in the design. This is the three trends which I've studied going to be there in post-COVID scenario. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. So with all that, so it is time to wrap up. I think we are very much on time. I'm so thankful for all the speakers for considering the time given to you all. So on behalf of SONA, I would like to thank all the speakers, all the three eminent speakers, for all your valuable sharings. And a special thank you to Architect Tushar Sogani for giving us such a nice insights from your own experience from your own country. All of them were very nice to hear. So thank you so much. And thank you, dear participants, for listening and making time for this platform and making it so much interactive. Definitely now we'll meet again with Architect Speaks Series 13, which will be organized by the SONA Committee of Young Architects, where we'll be having one of the leading architect of Nepal, Architect Prajul Hara, as the speaker. So thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening. Stay safe, stay home. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thanks a
And
lot.
namaste.
Namaste. Namaste. Bye-bye.
Thank you.